Hi guys, welcome back. I'm Kelly of Kelly J Jewellery. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make this pendant. It has a 10mm bead and a little 5mm cubic zirconia. If you haven't set one before, why not give it a go? Or just have a watch and see how I set it. A list of everything you'll need is written in the description below, along with my Facebook page link and my Etsy shop if any of you are interested in my PDF tutorials. It's all there. So don't forget to subscribe. As soon as I reach 4,000 subscribers, I'll be doing a pendant giveaway on Facebook, so come and check it out and I'll see you there. To make this pendant, you'll need 0.8mm wire, that's 20 gauge. I've cut 3 lengths at 15 inches each, that's 38 centimetres. You'll need 0.315, that's 28 gauge weaving wire, and you'll need about 500 centimetres. I've got a 5mm cubic zirconia and a 10mm bead and 2 3mm beads. I'll be using my pliers, round nose pliers, wire cutters. I'll be using wire straighteners, but you don't need these. If you haven't got these, don't worry, you can just use your fingers. Okay, let's get started. I'm going to start weaving about 5.5 inches from the beginning of my wires, which is 14 centimetres. So I'm going to start with 3 wraps around the bottom wire, and I'm going to do 2 wraps around the bottom 2 wires, and then 2 wraps around the top 2 wires. Then we'll keep repeating that. 2 wraps around the bottom 2 wires, and then 2 wraps around the top 2 wires. So I've done 12 repeats of that 2-2 weave. Just going to cut that tail end off. I'm going to take this bottom wire, bend it straight down, and carry on weaving on those 2 wires we've got left. And I'm going to go twice around the bottom wire, and then I'm going to go twice around both wires, and we're going to repeat that twice around the bottom 2, the bottom 1, and then twice around both wires. So I've done 16 repeats. Should look like that. I'm going to take my 10mm bead and post it onto this bent wire. I'm going to bend the other side of the wire straight down like that. And then this top weave, I'm going to curve that over. A bit tricky to show you what I'm doing. Pushing my weaves along there to keep it tidy. I want it to meet up there where the wire comes out the other side of the bead. I'm going to carry on weaving across all 3 wires. So I'm going to bend these out the way for now, so that both the sides match. We need to finish this weave with 2 wraps around both wires. And then I'm gonna try and straighten off all my wires. Around the bottom too. And then around the top 2. And I'm going to repeat the 2-2 weave another 12 times, so it's the same as the other side. So I've done 12 repeats of that 2-2 weave on that side. And to finish it off, I'm going to go twice around the bottom 2 wires again, and then 3 times around that bottom wire. So that's what we've got so far. So now I'm going to pull these together, keeping them flat. We want 6 wires all sat next to each other now. So gently pull all your wires into a straight line. Rearrange the tops going out a little bit so it's easier to weave. Pulling the wire quite taut, go around the bottom wire 3 times. Just holds it together so we can start weaving across all 6 wires. So we're going to go around the bottom 2 wires, and we're going to come up between the bottom 2, then go around the next 2, and then up between, then around the next two, then up between those two wires, then we go around the next two, we come up between those two wires, straight over the top, back up between those two where we just were, and wrap around that fifth wire. Then we want to wrap around the fourth wire, then around the third wire, then around the second wire, and that's how we repeat. I'm going to push that right down there so it's nice and tidy. So we need another two of these. Repeat all the way across 6 wires. So do that another twice. So I've done 3 repeats of that big weave across all the wires. So it should look like that. Okay, so what we're going to do now is I'm going to take these middle 2 wires, the middle 2 of the 6, and I'm going to bend them forward from the base. Bend them straight forward like that. So now I'm going to carry on weaving over the 4 wires, and I'm going to do a figure of 8 type weave. So I'm going to go once around both wires, and I'll go just around that top one of the bottom 2, and I'm going to go underneath, and I'm going to go straight around the bottom of the top 2 wires, then I'm going to go over both of the wires. So now I'm going to go between bottom 2 wires and around that second wire, then around both the bottom wires, up between the top 2, and around that bottom of the top 2 wires, and then around the top 2 wires again. So that's a few repeats of it, so you need to keep repeating that. I'll go a little bit further with you. So we come up between the bottom 2 wires and around that second wire. Then we go around both wires and come up between the top 2 wires. Go around that third wire and then over the top 2 wires, and that's our figure of 8. So you need to repeat this so there is enough space on the figure of 8 weave for your cubic zirconia to sit. It's going to be about 10 repeats or maybe 12, so that the cubic zirconia can sit in there, in that gap on the weave. So I've done 10 repeats of that little figure of 8 type weave. I'm just pushing it down. So I'm going to place my little stone on there, and these are so fiddly, whoop, to hold. The thing about using a cubic zirconia is they've got this lovely point on the back. So if you want to trap your stone, you do a nice weave like this, and if I can get him back on there, the cubic zirconia point will sit lovely in that weave. So when I've got it where I want it to be, I'm going to press it into the weave. So that point on the back, can you see that? The point on the back sits into the weave a little bit. Whoop. Doesn't quite push through the back. You can see it in there, maybe a little bit. So what we're going to do now is grab these 2 wires that are pointing straight up. I'm pressing him down again so that he's definitely sat in that weave. He's sticking to my finger. I'm going to pull these 2 wires straight down over the stone. Hope he stays in place. There he is. Right, got him. You can see him sat in there now. I'm just going to press down on this part. These 2 wires I'm going to feed straight through the middle. I'm just going to pull them down so that that's definitely trapped in there. Like that. And then I'm going to take my pliers and I'm going to try and straighten these wires up a bit. No, I'm not. I'm going to use my fingers. So I'm pressing here and I'm pulling my wires back up. So hopefully I've bent my wires to be back up. Can you see that? So I've curved them back up immediately here so that the stone is still in there. Then what we're going to do is carry on that weave from before over all 6 wires, and now you've got to hold the stone in place as you go. So the first repeat is going to be the trickiest, and then that should keep it in place. So holding the stone in place, my weaving wire is at the bottom. I'm going to go around the bottom 2 wires. And I'm going to go up between the bottom 2 wires. I'm going to go over the next 2 wires, holding that stone firmly in place. And between those 2 wires, over the next 2, so we're doing exactly the same repeat, the weave that was across all 6 wires at the beginning there. And then I come back a wire, go over the next two, and you must make sure that all your wires sit right next to each other, otherwise that stone is going to escape. Come back a wire over the top two, still hanging on to that stone, don't let go of it. Just going to push that weave close with my pliers. So still holding on to the stone, I'm going to go between those two wires there. So I'm going around the 5th wire. I'm going to go around the 4th wire. Around the 3rd wire. Around the 2nd wire. And that should hold him in place, but you must make sure that all this weave is pushed together really tightly, just to make sure he's secure. I'm going to take those two middle wires that the stone is trapped under, and one at a time with my nylon pliers, I'm just going to pull on that wire, give it a good tug. And the next one, got to pull on that wire. So it's definitely firm, hold it in place now. I'm going to carry on and do another 2 repeats of this weave across all 6 wires, and then we'll separate these wires. Keep them there for now while we're still adjusting our wires. So do another 2 weaves, another 2 repeats of this weave across all 6 wires. So I've done another 3 repeats at the top of the stone. I can't emphasise enough how important it is to keep compressing that weave together as you go. It keeps the strength there to hold that stone in place. So you really do need it to be quite tight like mine. So now, your nails around these 2 wires and pull them apart a little, just to show the front of that stone. What you can do as well is actually bend the wire out a little bit. I don't want it to open up too much. Don't want him escaping. So that's a 5mm cubic zirconia. I think if you were to go a bit smaller it might get a bit too fiddly. And you could put in one that was a bit bigger if you wanted to. Now take the 2 wires on the right, pull them down out the way. Take the 2 wires on the left, pull those down out the way for now. And we're going to carry on weaving across these 2 wires. I'm going to go three times around the bottom wire, and then 3 times around both wires. And we'll repeat that about 10 times. So that's my 10 repeats. At the base, bending it over to the right, and then curve the weave over to the left to get a nice shape at the top there. So now I'm going to take the next wire and bend that over to follow the weave. Got him stuck. Like that. So I'm going to go around the bottom 2 wires, then I'm going to go around the bottom wire 5 times, and I'm going to go around all 3 wires twice, then around the bottom wire 5 times, and taking this top wire on the right, I'm going to bend that wire around so it follows the other wires. It ends up sitting in line with these to continue the weave. Only with this top wire, get one of my little 3mm beads. I'm going to thread that on there. So it sits like that. So now I'm going to go over the bottom 3 wires and come up between the bottom 2 wires, and I'm going to go over, straight over the top, Then bringing the wire under the bottom, I'm going to go over those 3 wires again, like that. And I'm going to wrap 5 times around the bottom wire. Then I go around the bottom 3 wires, leaving that top one. Do that twice. Go around that bottom wire again 5 times. Go around the bottom 3. Between those bottom 2 wires, straight over the top, and the wire under the bottom wire, over the 3 wires again. Because you can do what you want really along these wires, but I did this little weave earlier today and it was quite effective around this stone, so I thought I'd share it with you guys. So now I'll go 5 times around that bottom wire again. So I'm going to do a few more repeats of that, going around the bottom wire 5 times, and then twice around all 3, the bottom wire 5 times, and you go once around 3, then the top 3, then the bottom 3, then 5 times again. So I'm going to repeat that again. So I did one more repeat of that weave we were doing. I've not a clue what it's called or if it even has a name. And I'm going to now slowly bend this curve, this weave, around the stone. So I need to keep weaving, so I want my weave to reach to the edge here. So I'm going to add another repeat or part of a repeat to there. That's what we should have so far. So I added another repeat. So my weave now reaches the end there. I'm going to take these, if I'm holding it upside down, I'm going to take the bottom 2 wires. Let's have a look which way we're going. I'm going to trim that weaving wire. It might be hard to get hold of in a bit. I'm going to take those 2 wires around to the back, so that holds it quite securely in place. So I'm going to bend these 2 wires around as well, so they sit next to the other two across the back there. Just going to flatten that down. And the top two wires, I'm going to bend straight over the front. Oops, sorry, didn't show you that there. Just bend them straight over. And then these two, I'm going to weave a little bit onto those two. And because I'm going to be bending it over, I'm going to weave with the back facing forwards. I'm going to take my weaving wire, attach it to the bottom wire. So I've wrapped 3 times around the bottom wire. I'm going to go 3 times around both wires, and I'm weaving at the back facing forward, because these wires are going to be bent straight over the front, so this will be the front side once they've bent over. So I'm going to repeat that about 6 times. So I've done my 6 repeats there. Cut this tail end off. Now I'm going to bend this new weave straight over to the front there. I'm going to curve it around like that. I'm going to bend these wires open a little bit. Now I'm going to do a figure of 8 weave type weave around these 2 wires. So I've gone over the top wire, I'll go over it again, and I'm coming over the bottom wire, I'll go over it again, I'll go over the top wire twice, and over the bottom wire twice, and keep repeating that, going over the opposite wire and wrapping around a couple of times. I'm going to keep repeating this until I reach about here level with the bead. So I've repeated that figure of 8 weave. Till it comes over the side of the weave here and meets the bead there. And then I'm going to continue to wrap around this bottom wire. About 10 times maybe. So now I'm going to take this wire, and keeping it in place where I want it to sit, bend it around to the back like that. I'm going to post it through so I can secure it, and then it won't move. I'm going to put it between bead and the bottom of the weave there. So I want the top of the figure of 8 weave to wrap around the back there. Now I want it to go, it's a bit fiddly, underneath this coiled wire. You can hear a strange sound, that's my dog nibbling her blanket. Cut that short. Press it around, sort of squeeze it. A bit shorter. So that's secured around that weave there. So that's what we've got so far. So going back to this wire with the coils on, I'm going to cut it through my bobbin. So I've just got a short length of wire on there. And I'm going to post it to the back. So I'm just going to secure this coiled wire where I want it. So I want the wire to come up next to those two. I'm going to go under the actual coiled wire, so it sits like that. I'm going to go around a few times. That should hold it in place. And I'm going to cut this one quite short. Trim my weaving wire too. Curl that wire out of the way. There's so many wires sticking off this, it's hard to show you what I'm doing. Just going to curl this wire. Like that. So with these two wires that are coming down here, I'm going to follow that curve like that, and I'm going to post them. I've got one long one and one short one here. I'm going to post them in that gap there. And then try not to let them cross over each other. I'm going to bend them back. And then over the weave again into an arc. I'm going to leave those for now. I'll go back up to these top 2 wires. That's what we've got so far. So with these top 2 wires, I'm going to bend them straight around. Try not to let them cross over each other. So they kind of look like they're going to follow the flow of everything. Yeah, I'm going to put a couple of curls in them there. And I'm just going to separate them now and just curl this single wire around. Like that. So then I'm going to take a hold of these 2 wires, holding them to the front as well. I'm going to bend them around straight across the back like that. Whenever I set a cubic zirconia in there or anywhere, I like to have a weave or at least a few wires on each side, just so there's no chance at all of it coming out of there. I'm going to trim these 2 wires that I've just bent around the back, and I'm going to curve them over and just push them in there out the way so this secured it in place. So I'll trim them quite short. And I'm going to pull the weave away a little. And bend them over. So go around the back there. Just trying to find my pliers. Squeeze it down with the pliers. Then I'll push the weave back into place. Hopefully I haven't misshapen them too much. That's what we've got so far. So now we'll finish off on these bottom 2 wires. I'm going to separate them. I'm going to bend this one around to the back. Squeeze it firmly with my nylon pliers, and then I'm going to cut it about there. So it's secure there. And then with this one, I'm going to bend that one around. I'm going to do the same. Squeeze it with the pliers. Cut it quite short. Make sure it's firmly in place. So all I need to add now is a little jumping through the top so we can attach a cord or a chain and oxidise it, of course. I've done a video on oxidising, if any of you want to know how I get the oxidised colour.